So give it on up for Vivian Smotherman!
Thank you, Ryan. You are amazing. Hello, Ouray. How's everybody doing? I love Pride events. They're like my favorite thing to do. So I was in Pagosa. We did their first Pride 2 weeks ago, and it went fantastic. This one just warms my heart to see so many people coming out here for this. I love it. So, as Ryan said, my name is Vivian Smotherman. I am a candidate for Colorado Senate District 6, which does include San Miguel County, Ouray County, and portion of Montrose County. But I'm here today because I am a trans woman who's also a proud member of the LGBT plus community. So, it's 2024, and as a community... Here, is that better? Okay, wow. All right, we're going to try this again. It's 2024. As a community, we've survived the Stonewall riots. We cheered at the rise of feminism. We cried through the AIDS crisis and Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And finally, with Obergefell versus Hodges, we got the right to marry and something to celebrate. As a community, we've been through a lot. We've marched, we've protested, and we've suffered. And all we've ever asked for is the right to live our lives honestly and openly, the right to be who we are and love who we love. These are not big asks, yet today, in 2024, we're still embroiled in this fight for simple human dignity. So for those of you here today and still committed to this fight, I salute you. You have my respect and my sincere appreciation. Now, as a community, we're being banned from libraries, forbidden from holding certain jobs, and constantly bombarded with hate, vitriol, and baseless accusations. So you have to ask, why are they so afraid of us? Well, I'll tell you what I think it is. They're afraid because we're not. We're not afraid to walk out our front door and proudly embrace our identity. We're not afraid to come together in solidarity and demand the respect we're entitled to. We're not afraid because we've learned that living a life in the shadows is no life at all. We deserve better. Now, as I said, I am a trans woman, and I'm a storyteller, so I'm excited to share a few of my stories with you today. Let me start by saying that the life of a trans person is often a painful, sad, and lonely road to travel. Okay, not something I would wish on anyone, but for those traveling this road, maybe some of my experiences can give you hope that things can be better. So, like many trans women, I knew by the time I was 3 years old that I had the wrong body. My parents knew it as well, but being in the 1970s, I was sternly, if not lovingly, taught that I was the problem. And I was shamed, and I was punished, and I was even beaten just for trying to understand and express who I was. Now, growing up as a young trans person in the 70s and 80s was no picnic, but I learned how to hide and I learned how to hate myself. Lessons that would take me until my 40s to unlearn. Now, when I was 40, I rode a camel around the Great Pyramids in Egypt. I faced pirates off the coast of Somalia, and I rode a motorcycle in Sturgis. I had everything a man could want. There was a problem. I wasn't a man. I'll never forget the day I was driving into town and I turned to my wife, a woman that's been understanding and supportive since the day we met. And I said to her, "Honey, I want boobs." There was a long moment of silence before she said, "No." But I wasn't about to get in. So I made my case, and eventually she conceded with a very promising, "I'll think about it," which meant that I couldn't stop thinking about it. And before long, I realized that it wasn't boobs I wanted, it was freedom. I wanted the freedom to be who I was inside. Long story short, I'd reached the point that many trans people eventually reach, that point where you simply can't go on living the lie. Thankfully, I had a wife that loved and supported me, and a family that embraced me. I really was blessed. From there, I did what I recommend every trans person do. I had my head examined. Okay, I found a great therapist, supportive medical professionals, and I actually began the process of transitioning. And I'll tell you right now, that is one heck of a journey. The single best advice I got along the way came from one of my therapists when she warned me, don't get stuck in the transition. So you see, for that brief period in your life, as you assert yourself and you take charge of your own reality, you're a hero. You have so many people patting you on the back, congratulating your bravery, pumping you up. that it's hard to remember how polarizing you are as a human being. It's empowering to say the least, but eventually that praise does disappear. That open support dwindles, and people just start to see you as the person you've become. And that feeling of being a hero vanishes, and you have to just wake up every day and be that person that you've become. And that's not exactly easy, but it's essential. Now for me, I started my transition while working in what is arguably one of the most testosterone-filled, bigoted, male-dominated industries on earth. I was an offshore oil worker in the Gulf of Mexico. Not an area known for its touchy-feely vibes of welcoming inclusion. Still, I had my wife's support, and I'd made the decision, so there was no turning back. The first thing I did was call my boss. And I explained my decision, what I was going to do. And since he and I were both at the time entertaining offers to move to a new company, I felt it was right to let him know. So that if he was okay, we'd both go to the new company. If he wasn't, we'd decide how to split it up then. But he was gracious. He was understanding. He said he believed it was important for every person to be who they had to be. He was not judging me. I was astounded, and we both agreed that the competing offer was too good to be true or too good to pass up, so we took it. It was a very humbling experience. In fact, as we ended that phone call, without my asking, he told me he could appreciate how private and personal an issue this was, and he promised to keep it to himself. So again, I was humbled. For about 15 minutes, because that's how long it took until my phone rang, and the hillbilliest backwoods bayou boy you'll ever meet was calling me. I answered the phone and I said, "Hello, Kurt." That's all I got out before I heard, "I want to pick your name," screamed over the phone. I said, "Excuse me?" He said, "Your name, your girl name. I want to pick your name." I said, "How about hell no?" Now, I'm not questioning my friend's moral character here, or his motivations for making such an insane request. He was a man, after all, that had taken the time to burn himself once with a welding rod to hide a hickey on his neck from his wife. But I know if I'd let him pick my name, I'd be Bubbles, or Diamond, or Lexus, or something of that nature. Still, he hadn't called to harass me, or spew hate. He just thought it was funny. And I couldn't fault him for that. So essentially, that was my coming out story. I was terrified, I was ashamed, but looking in the mirror at the wrong face every day was just too painful. So I had to risk everything to find myself. And in the end, it turned out great. Okay? I prepared myself for the worst. I stood ready to face the hate. But because those men where I worked, they knew me. They knew my character. They could have cared less about my gender identity. Okay? And this is in southern Louisiana, FYI. Thus, I began my transition. Now, the first thing that happens when transitioning is what, medically? What's the first thing they do? Anybody know? Hormones, exactly. They get HRT, okay? I started mine in 2012, okay? Now, hormones are interesting because you're not really sure what's gonna happen on them. So this freaked me out. I wasn't prepared for this, okay? I suppose with everyone it could be different. The first thing I noticed was my skin. Right? Specifically the skin on my hands. I thought I was having a bad reaction to the drugs. Okay, and I ran to my wife in a panic and I said, something's wrong, feel this. She took me by the hand, she stroked my palm, she looked me in the eye and smiled and said, "They're soft." She was right, my skin was changing and it softened and my calluses were evaporating. But the other big change that was happening was in my brain. Because guess what? I suddenly had more emotions than just angry, horny, and hungry. That's new. My brain was changing in a lot of ways. The way I focused changed. For the first time in my life, I got so engrossed in a conversation while driving that I blew right through a stop sign. The conversation we were having stopped immediately, and I looked at my wife beside me, and then I checked the mirror to see my daughter. They were both slack-jawed and staring at me. I said, "What?" She said, "You've never done that before." They were right, I hadn't. Because the things that change when you transition are amazing, and they're confusing, and I'll tell you right now, you're not prepared for any of it. Now, shortly after that, I did discover one more thing that changed, rather unexpectedly. When I changed my paperwork to match my new gender, and I was getting all my documents in order, we had to call the auto insurance company to change my name there. Now, the woman on the phone was incredibly supportive and helpful. But as we got through everything, she audibly sighed over the phone and said, "I'm sorry, I do have some bad news for you." Okay, my heart sank. I knew it couldn't be this easy. Waiting for the other shoe to drop, I asked, "What's wrong?" She very apologetically told me that with my gender change, my insurance rates were going to go up. She changed an M to an F in a computer, and suddenly I was a greater risk on the road. Now, to be fair, I would have argued the point, except I had the stop sign incident. So these are some of my stories, some of the insanity that comes with changing your gender. It's not easy. I don't recommend it for anyone, but if you must, you simply have to, and I will support you. Which brings me back to where I started. This is pride. It's pride because when the whole world stands against us, we look in the mirror and we find ourselves. We stop pretending, we stop lying to ourselves, and we stop praying that it's all a mistake, hoping to wake up tomorrow and be normal. It's pride because we all face that moment when we realize this is who we are, and it's good. We're strong, we're independent, we're intelligent, we're accomplished. We laugh, we cry, we love. We are proud of who we are, and we've learned to be proud. Now, many go their entire lives without ever learning who they are. So if you've reached that point, you have earned your pride. Congratulations. But pride isn't just about us as individuals. Pride is about coming together under this brilliant Colorado sun as a community and celebrating. Pride is where we acknowledge our struggles, remember those we lost along the way, and we raise a glass to our triumph. Pride is when our community comes together and renews its commitment to making this world a more welcoming and safer place. Pride is for everyone, and I want to thank everyone here today for showing up, showing your colors, and standing shoulder to shoulder with me, ready to continue this fight for equity and inclusion. Because this is what pride looks like. So thank you again for having me. Thank you for listening to me. I am in a tent over here. I'll finish with this one thought. When people know you're trans, you see the look behind their eyes of the 1,000 questions they want to ask you. And they're afraid, they're embarrassed, they're afraid to hurt your feelings. I'm not that person. If you have questions, don't hesitate. Come ask me. I will tell you everything because it's a lot of fun. So thank you again.